I know the title kind of looks silly, practice as little as possible, but I'll get into it. I'll explain what I mean by that. I don't actually mean that you shouldn't practice very much. I think that you should practice a whole lot because it'll help your playing a whole lot. But let's get into that. Hey, I'm Isaac Schanno Johnson. If you don't know me, I'm a musician, composer, producer, and I make videos about all that fun stuff, music composition, music production. So make sure you hit that subscribe button to see videos like this in the future. So practice as little as possible. What exactly do I mean by this? What I mean is practice efficiently. I know. Come on, man. You could have just titled it How to Practice Efficiently. But that's not nearly as fun as saying practice as little as possible. Also, it doesn't get my students involved and engaged as much as saying practice as little as possible. Because I think practice as little as possible has a different connotation. And then when you explain what I mean, I think then it kind of makes a little more sense when thinking about it, at least to me. Practice as little as possible makes more sense than practice efficiently. That sounds very productive and very work and very, very serious. I think practice as little as possible is like, no, I want to be playing, right? I want to be playing my instrument. I want to be having fun. Practicing isn't always fun. So I want to do that as little as possible so that I can be playing more. And that's the distinction, is practice versus play. Practicing, you're serious, you're focused, you're really improving. Playing, you're having fun, you're having a good time, you're making music, you're expressing yourself, right? And those two things I separate in my head when I play my instrument, is practice versus play. We'll get into that in a different video, but for now, practice as little as possible is practice as if rehearsal is tomorrow. Practice as if rehearsal is tomorrow. What can you do to make sure that when you show up to rehearsal tomorrow, you sound good? You sound as best as you can. You sound like you've been playing this song for years. How can you do that? Now, what this means is you got to experiment with different practice techniques. You have to try out different ways of practicing. You have to learn what works best for you as a player, as somebody that plays guitar, or piano, or violin, or flute. Learn what works for you when you're practicing. Now, I've made a bunch of videos about practicing. I'll link some up here in the card. I'll link them in the description, and go watch them because I've made a number of different videos about different practice techniques that personally work for me really well. Check them out, but they might not work for you. But if you haven't ever done them, you don't know. So definitely take a look at those videos, see if they work for you. Try and find different practice techniques that work for you. Maybe you work really well and you learn really well, you improve a lot when you're looping small sections. I do that sometimes. Maybe you practice really well, you learn really well, you get better, a lot better, you improve a lot when you're practicing really slowly. I got a video about that too. If you're practicing and maybe you learn really well by separating different pieces, right? You practice just the notes and then just the rhythm. Maybe that technique works for you. Whatever it is, see if that works for you. Maybe you learn really well when you clap before you play, right? You clap the rhythm before you play it. Maybe you learn really well, you practice really well when you're playing with other people and you have somebody else there to help you with it. I mean, you can't always do that, unfortunately, but maybe that helps. Maybe you learn really well when you're listening to the recording rather than learning from sheet music. On the other hand, maybe you learn really well from sheet music rather than from recordings. Use those to then help improve your playing as quickly as you can. You're thinking, how can I learn this by tomorrow? What can I do? How can I spend as little time as I can playing and improving so that I can have fun playing music, learning music, enjoying all that music has to offer? Something that works well for me is playing really slowly and playing in small bursts. So rather than practicing for 3 hours long, maybe you're playing for 3 hours long, but within that, you're practicing for maybe 25 minutes of really dedicated, focused practice. That often gets me playing my instrument a lot more than thinking I need to seriously practice for an hour a day, right? That's good, and when I can do that, that's awesome. But thinking, how can I practice and improve on my instrument for an hour isn't why I got into music. Honestly, I don't think that's why many people got into music. Personally, I definitely didn't get into music to practice. I got into music to play. So what I want to do is practice as little as possible, as efficiently as possible. When I find a new piece of music that I'm trying to learn, I think, how can I learn this in 5 minutes? What can I do? What technique can I use on this specific piece of music to learn this in 5 minutes? Now, this means you have to have multiple techniques, because not every technique is going to work for every piece of music and every different piece of music that you're learning. But you want to think, how can I learn this in 5 minutes? What can you do to get as good as you can with that specific idea in 5 minutes? Now, this is complicated and it takes a little practice to get used to, pun intended. But when you're doing this, it can help you improve how you practice. It can make sure that you know what you're doing when you practice, so that you're very intentional about your practice, so that you know, I'm going to practice for 10 minutes. I'm going to get better for 10 minutes. I know for a fact this will get me better in 10 minutes. That's what you want to think, right? What can you do to learn a song in 5 minutes before the rehearsal? What would you do if you had a rehearsal in 5 minutes and someone gave you some music and a recording or whatever you needed and said, you need to learn this and be able to play it in 5 minutes? What would you do? Other than panic and freak out and be like, oh God, I don't know what I'm doing. Other than all that stuff, what would you do that would help you be able to do that? That's what you want to think, right? And maybe it's not a whole song. Maybe it's just 4 measures, right? You don't need to take a whole song, but think about that as you're playing. What can you do to learn it in 5 minutes, as quickly as possible, as efficiently as possible, as effectively as possible, so you can get back to playing your instrument and having fun, having a good time, making music. All right, that's it for this video. I hope you found it useful. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned something about music. If you did, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button. As always, thank you for watching, and I will see you next time. Peace.